Okay, it is being recorded. So if you need tech support for Zoom, the number to call is 1-888-799-0125. You will get options and you will touch option 2. Throughout the presentation, you may type questions in the question and answer box. We will deal with those at the end of the presentation. As we said, this presentation has been recorded, and the slides and the recording will be posted to the same website you went to register for this webinar. Here is our non-discrimination statement that is required for all NIFA presentations. We adhere strictly to the Department of Agriculture's Civil Rights and Regulations policies, and we are very strict about that. If you have a need for alternative means of communication, in that second bullet point there, it gives you information on where you should contact. And if you wish to file a discrimination complaint, the third bullet point gives you an address, phone number, email address, a fax number where you can submit such a complaint. All right, let's introduce ourselves. My name is Bisundat Makun. I go by Mac. I'm the National Program Leader in charge, responsible for the Alfalfa Seed and Alfalfa Forage Systems program. I will ask Vance and Heather to unmute and go ahead and introduce themselves. Vance, go ahead.
Sure, thanks. Hello, everybody. Vance Owens, and I help Mac and Heather out on this program. Glad to be here. And I'm a national program leader as well at NIFA.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Hall. I'm a program specialist with the plant production division here, and help Mac with a few of his programs, supplemental and alternative crops, commodity board, as well as working on potato breeding. So nice to see you.
So national program leaders are expected to provide science leadership to advance food and agricultural research and its application here at NIFA. Our program specialists possess expert knowledge of NIFA processes and procedures and essentially serve as the project manager that coordinates our team activities. In today's presentation, Vance will give you a NIFA overview, and then I will talk about the program, give you an overview, talk about the RFA details, discuss the proposal evaluation process, and then provide you with some additional information and resources. So Vance, go ahead with the overview, please.
Yeah, thanks, Mac. And I'll just let everybody know that I have to leave for a doctor's appointment just before this this meeting ends that came up. So anyway, I'll probably be leaving about 10 or 15 minutes early. So for the NIFA overview, as you all are most likely aware, NIFA is the extramural funding agency within the U.S. Department of Agriculture, and the one through which the Alfalfa program is managed, and the Congress provides the funds, and we manage those in this program and among others. We invest, or NIFA invests and supports all of the initiatives that support agriculture that are given to us from Congress, and provide funding and strategic leadership for those programs, as Mac just stated. Next slide, Mac. What you might not be aware of, many of you I'm sure are, but what you might is just the extent of and breadth of topics that NIFA does cover. And so while this program in and of itself is fairly specific, I would just encourage everyone to look at other programs within NIFA's portfolio to see where there might be either collaboration opportunities, partnership opportunities, other opportunities where you could apply. Obviously, some of those areas might be in the animal, on the animal side of things, based on the forage work that you and we do. But we do cover everything from A to at least P in this slide, from advanced technologies to plants. And as Mac and Heather mentioned, the three of us are actually in the plant production division within the Institute of Food Production and Sustainability. But there are all kinds of other things that happen in between there, between animals, business, economy, natural resources, international work, et cetera. And so I think this slide is here mainly just to let you know the breadth of what there is available, and to encourage you to look into other opportunities as well as this one, as you have the opportunity to do so. So thanks.
Thank you, Vats. So I'll go ahead with the program overview. I believe I'm speaking to the choir here, but we know that alfalfa is essential to sustainable agricultural production systems, and it is an economic engine for rural communities. We know that alfalfa has value for soil conservation, nitrogen fixation, energy savings, crop rotation benefits, wildlife habitat. We talk about these things as ecosystem benefits when we're talking about other aspects of agriculture, and alfalfa is probably one of the most ubiquitous crops when it comes to providing ecosystem benefits. To provide these societal benefits, production of alfalfa must be profitable to producers through their market outlets, and so that they be willing to maintain or expand use of acreages of alfalfa. This program purpose and priority is listed on page 6 of the RFA, and it is the Alfalfa Seed and Alfalfa Forage Systems program. While this AFRP designation is not the abbreviation for that program, in its earliest form, it was called the Alfalfa and Forage Research Program, and it was coded AFRP. We have to continue using that code because that's how it is in the software system, and when we're searching for it, that's the code we have to use. So the AFRP is aligned with some of the USDA strategic goals. There are 6 of them for the 2022-2026 strategic plan. And these goals are: goal number 2, ensure America's agricultural systems equitable, resilient, and prosperous. Goal number 3, it fosters an equitable and competitive marketplace for all agricultural producers. Goal number 4, produce all Americans safe, nutritious food. And goal 5, expand opportunities for economic development and improve quality of life in rural and tribal communities. Typically, any NIFA program is supposed to be aligned with at least one goal in the strategic plan, and luckily for us, we are aligned with 4 of those 6 goals that have been enumerated by the USDA. We are soliciting applications in the following priority areas, and this is listed on pages 6 and 7 of the RFA. We are looking for projects that will increase alfalfa forage and seed yields and forage quality through improved management practices, plant breeding, and other strategies to reduce biotic and abiotic stresses and cost of production. We are looking for proposals that will improve alfalfa forage and seed harvest and storage systems, including projects that look at automation that reduce labor costs. And this is in an effort to optimize economic returns in alfalfa to alfalfa producers, as well as end users, including dairy producers. As you know, alfalfa is very important to the dairy industry. We're looking for proposals that develop methods to estimate alfalfa forage yields and quality, to support marketing as a livestock feed and instruments to reduce producers' risk. We're also looking at projects that will explore new uses of alfalfa, such as in fish feeds, nutritive supplements, alternative protein sources for human consumption, and also high-value chemical manufacturing and any other novel uses that you all can come up with. We are looking for proposals that can develop improved insect disease and weed management strategies, included spotted aphid in alfalfa seed production, and potential herbicide carryover issues. We also wish to solicit proposals that document the contribution of alfalfa production systems to climate-smart agriculture, including sequestration of carbon and other such opportunities for environmental stewardship. This request for applications for the Alfalfa Seed and Alfalfa Forage Systems Program has a regional and national coordination aspect to it. We are required to ask for regional coordination at the very least, and we encourage national coordination of AFRP projects. For the goal of regional coordination, this means that at least 2 states from the same region must have a significant involvement in the project. And I will show you what those regions are or how they're divided in my next slide. But bear in mind, it must be at least 2 states from the same region, and they both must have significant involvement in the project for it to be considered regional coordination. For projects that want to shoot for national coordination, we must have states from at least 2 of the described regions, and at least 2 states from each of those participating regions must be involved. In other words, there must be 4 states involved in your project for you to call it a project with a goal of national coordination. And the 4 states means 2 states each from the different regions. Regional balance and involvement of new investigators may be considered when we're discussing funding recommendations. And here are the regions. We have what's called the Eastern region, a Central region, and the Western region. I'm not going to read all of those. They are listed on the RFA on page 7. Traditional ecological knowledge may or may not be a topic to satisfy the above-mentioned objectives. What does that mean? It means that if you do not achieve at least a regional coordination object in your proposal, if your work is focused on using traditional ecological knowledge, we may overlook the lack of regional coordination. At NIFA, we encourage global engagement as long as it advances U.S. agricultural goals. We recognize that collaboration with international partners may be necessary to attain the agency's goals for U.S. agriculture. It will help to promote global competence of our nation's future agricultural workforce and hopefully promote safe and nutritious food security in a growing world. Therefore, although this application is limited to eligible U.S. institutions, and I'll talk about eligibility on the next slide, applicants may collaborate with international partners to include subcontracts to international partners or other institutions. Our caveat is these applications must clearly demonstrate benefits to the United States. So here are the requirements for eligibility. You're eligible if it's a college and university as described by the National Agricultural Research Extension and Teaching Policy Act of 1977. Other federal agencies are eligible. I'm always asked by AR's colleagues if they're eligible, and the answer is yes. Private sector entities, such as private research labs, are eligible. Individual U.S. citizens or nationals are eligible as long as they can show they meet the project and grant types requirements. And any combination of the above groups are eligible. Again, there might be some organizations who are not eligible to apply, but the award recipients may subcontract such organizations if they find them to be necessary for the conduct of the project. This information is on page 10 of the RFA. Let's talk about what are the AFRP project and grant types. What you see here is a list of project types and grant types. And these are all the project and grant types that are offered by NIFA. In this program, however, we're asking for projects that are submitted to be integrated, and the integration must include research and extension. That is not to say you cannot include education, but research and extension is required. So has to be integrated, research and extension, education can be included if you wish to. And in this program, we only accept standard grants, and that is a requirement by law. NIFA offers other types of grants that include strengthening grants, grants for collaborations, for funding efforts to improve collaboration. NIFA also offers grants to fund conferences, but in this particular program, in the AFRP program, we do not fund those. We only fund standard grants. And this is just repeating what I just said. Only research, integrated research and extension it has to include those. It can include education, but it has to include research and extension. All grants are standard, and the maximum project duration is 3 years, 36 months. The information on cost share and matching can be found on page 10 of the RFA. There is a matching fund requirement. In general, it's subject to subparagraph C, an entity receiving a grant under paragraph 1. This is in the USC 5925A 2, by the way. So if you're applying, you shall provide non-federal matching funds, including funds from agricultural commodity promotion, research, and information program, equal to not less than the amount of the grant. This can include in-kind support of non-federal funds as described in subparagraph A. I like to emphasize this slide because I get lots of questions about it. The Secretary may waive matching funds requirements under subparagraph A with respect to a research project if the Secretary determines that the results of the project are of a particular benefit to a specific agricultural commodity, but those results are likely to be applicable to other agricultural commodities generally. Another reason why the Secretary may waive matching funds is if the project involves a minor commodity, deals with scientifically important research, and the recipient shows that they're unable to satisfy the matching funds requirement. Let's talk about the application details. The RFA is online at this link. Those of you who are here will already know that because you're here. Our deadline is May 2nd, 2024. So you got a long period of time to put together your proposal because this RFA was published before our anticipated publication date. It was published since around the middle of January. So when I was a researcher, I would have been jumping up in the air to know that. The total funding we have available in this fiscal year is $3,700,000 well, almost $704,000. Our maximum funding per award is $3,000 per year for a maximum of 3 years. So if you apply for a 3-year grant, you are allowed to apply for $900,000. We do not require, but we like for you to submit a notification of intent. Again, it's not a requirement. It just would be nice if we get a notification of intent from you. It helps us to recruit the expertise that we will need on our review panel. It helps to give an idea of how much proposals we can expect and to know what the size of a review panel needs to be. We do not need a whole lot of information. We don't need background about your proposal and what you plan to do and anything like that. All we want is an email submitted to afrp@usda.gov that says, the subject says AFRP, intend to submit. Give us a draft title. Give us the name of the PD and the applicant institution and name of potential co-PDs and their affiliations. It does not have to be all the people you plan to have as co-PDs, just the ones that you're thinking about immediately. And just indicating there which priority area or areas are going to be addressed. For your application, this information is spelled out on the RFA pages 12 to 15. The key components include your project summary and abstract, your project narrative, and your bibliography, along with your data management plan. We are not going to accept your submission if it does not have those things. Other things can be missing, the things that they ask for in the NIFA grants application guide. You know, your budget can be missing. Your CNP can be missing. Your COIs can be missing. We'll ask you for it afterwards, but if these things are missing from your submission on the deadline date of the submission, your submission will automatically not be accepted. Please know that. Some details, we limit the narrative to 18 to 22 pages. What that means is that if you only have written text, if you have only prose in your project narrative, it's limited to 18 pages. If you're going to have tables and figures separate from those 18 pages, those are limited to 4 pages. If you're going to embed your tables and figures into the project narrative as you go along, then the page limit is 22 pages. This must be 1.5 spacing, and it must be 12 point times New Roman font. Your tables can be 11 point font, but again, it must not exceed the page limit. If you have 23 pages, we are right now having discussions in the Institute about just rejecting those outright. The way we had been operating before was not strict. And what we would tell our reviewers is if the proposal has 22 pages, then ignore the last 2 pages. And if any pertinent information that would have sold your application was included in those last 2 pages, then you just lost. Okay, and I'm not going to go into more details there, but you know, it's all described in the RFA. That's specifically on page 13. The data management plan is important to us in NIFA. We are allowing up to 5 pages in this program. Most other programs allow only 1 or 2 pages for your data management plan. And we require this because NIFA's investment into transformative science directly supports the long-term prosperity and global preeminence of U.S. agriculture. And increased access to scientific research results. We're talking here about scholarly publications, digital data sets, and things like that. Education, and we're talking about curriculum and training products, number of students graduated, and so on. And extension, meaning outreach materials, number of stakeholders reached, and so on. So data from NIFA-funded project is critical to achieving NIFA's vision and to catalyze what we consider transformative discoveries, education, and engagement to address agricultural challenges in this nation. So we require an appropriate data management plan, and it should be a core component of research, education, extension planning for applications submitted to us in NIFA. There's a website there that gives you information on how and what and how we expect the data management to look like. NIFA accepts only electronic submissions of applications, and that's there's a website at resource at NIFA-grants.gov application guide that gives you guidelines on this. Application documents must be in a PDF format to be accepted by NIFA. Now, grants.gov may allow you to submit other formats, but NIFA does not. And please do not use third-party PDF builders. I want to tell you a horror story that happened to a colleague, well, a former colleague of mine from the ARS. She's not a former colleague, but we're not working together anymore. She submitted an outstanding proposal. When she sent it to me afterwards, I knew it was an outstanding proposal. But she submitted her project narrative as a Word document. And when I read it after it was submitted through grants.gov and I downloaded it, it looked like a mixture of Cyrillic, Hebrew, and Chinese. That's what I saw. So please make sure that all your documents have been converted to a PDF file before you submit them. Our proposal evaluation process, or our reviewers are asked to look at conceptual adequacy, design, experimental design, that is, appropriate use of regional, interdisciplinary, and industry-engaged approach, outreach plan, the probability of success of your application, the appropriateness of the budget to what you plan to do, and the suitability and feasibility of the data management plan. This is all outlined on page 18 of the RFA. You can see that there's a heavy weight attributed to your concept, the concept for your proposal, and for the scientific rigor of the experimental approaches. So please bear that in mind when you're putting together your application. Our evaluation process, we guide our reviewers to ensure that proposals are aligned with the purpose and the priorities that we ask for. We are required by law to assign at least 3 reviewers with the appropriate expertise to each proposal. That's what the law requires. In this program, ever since the advent, and I guess as a result of the pandemic, of the global pandemic, we have been assigning 4 reviewers to these proposals, well, at least since I came on board. And it kind of an insurance policy, because people would, right in the middle of the review process, say, I'm sick. And then we are required by law to have at least 3 written reviews. So then I'm in a position to call on the 4th person to provide a written review. In the meanwhile, that 4th person is only required to read the proposal so that they can engage in discussion, but they do not have to provide a written review. And they also act as scribe during the review panel discussion process. So these reviewers produce individual reviews, evaluate them based on their strengths and weaknesses. And these written reviews are used to begin panel discussion, where we all get together and discuss the merits of the proposals, how they should be ranked in terms of outstanding, high priority, medium priority, and so on. And when once they're assigned to those categories, then we start looking at how they rank within categories, meaning finding out which ones we consider the best and second and so on. In terms of timeline, we typically wish to have somewhere between 1 to 2 months from the publication of the RFA to when proposals are due. Again, I will again note that you had a lot of time. You have a lot of time this year, because we published the RFA in mid-January, and you have until May 2nd. When you submit those, we assign those to reviewers, and we like to have 2 to 3 months to have those reviewers look over those proposals and provide us with their written reviews. At the end of that process, it culminates in a panel discussion. The entire panel of reviewers meet with us, NIFA program staff, and the panel manager, and we discuss those. And once the panel makes their recommendations in terms of ranking of the proposals, we, the program staff, will then select the proposals that we will recommend to upper administration for awards based on how much money was requested by those proposals, how much money we can afford to spend, and also scientific merit. Not because we have money. If we do not have sufficient proposals that meet the requirements for the scientific merit, then those proposals will not be funded. So on average, a competitive program takes somewhere between 3 to 5 months from a proposal due date to when an award is actually given to an institution. Some additional information for you here. Most, if not all of you, are accustomed to using CRIS to search for proposals that had been funded and information about proposals. NIFA's gone to the NIFA Enterprise Portal to find your funded awards. Let me get a pointer here. And so I've provided a handy dandy link here, and you will get a copy of these slides, and you will get a recorded version of this presentation, so you can get to this link. If you click on that link, it will provide you with all the proposals that have been funded by NIFA in the Alfalfa and Forage program. See, it's still AFRP up here, Alfalfa and Forage program. There. If you don't find that link, or if for some reason you would just want to search for other stuff, you can go to the enterprise portal, portal nifa.usda.gov enterprise-search, and then click on advanced search here. And then where you see my cursor is on over program code here. If you click on that, it'll give you different ways to search in the advanced search. And if you use the program code, which is what I use to find this, then you can, if you know the code, and you will know codes from looking at RFAs, you will know, like, for example, my supplemental and alternative crops program code is HW. Don't ask me how it got HW, but it is HW. And then you can click on that, and it will give you a listing of all the proposals that have been funded by NIFA. Similar to how you saw it in the CRIS search, but it's more appealing to look at from, well, my opinion. If you want to look at upcoming events for NIFA, you can look at the events calendar. It's nifa.usda.gov/events. And if you want to look at upcoming requests for applications release calendar, nifa.usda.gov/upcoming-RFA-calendar. And you will get these links. Here's a listing of some resources that you can use for finding grants and for writing grants and guidelines for how to submit grants. These will also be on your on the website once we've posted the recording. One of the things I want to say before I close here is sometimes you may see, and this is generally for all NIFA RFAs, not just those in this program, sometimes you may see a discrepancy between the RFA and what's in the grant resources, the guidelines. If you encounter such an issue, always follow the RFA. The RFA takes precedence over what's in the guideline. So if you have questions, I hope you have had posted questions in the Q&A, and Heather's going to read that to me here in a minute, and I will try to answer your questions. If you do have questions, but you didn't think of them immediately and you want to follow up, then you can send them to me at bisundat.mukun@usda.gov or to Heather. And with that, I will stop sharing. And I think I've stopped sharing. I'm not sure. And I will ask Heather to start reading questions for me.
Okay, are we still continuing to record through the questions?
Yes, we're recording the questions also.
Okay. So if everybody can just make sure that you ask your questions in the Q&A pod and not the chat, that would be helpful. Our first question was, for increasing forage seed yields, would novel seed treatment, i.e. priming, coating, etc., be considered responsive to the RFA?
If the seed treatment that you're looking at is going to increase seed yields, then the answer is yes. It does not necessarily have to increase seed yield, but if your treatment is going to increase alfalfa production on the whole, if it's going to increase herbage mass, then it will be considered responsive to the RFA. I hope that answers your question.
Okay. The next question is, if we have 3 states from the same region, but 1 state from another region, is it called as national coordination?
No, it's not, because it does not follow the guidelines. But I'll tell you what, We are in the process of revising that regional and national coordination guideline. And maybe next year, it's too late. Obviously, RFA is already published, and we cannot deviate from the RFA. But maybe in next year's RFA, you will see changes to that that makes it more, let's say, lenient in terms of those requirements for number of states and number of institutions that have to be involved. But the direct answer to your question is no. It has to be at least 2 states from each of 2 regions.
Okay, our next question is, are tower and pivot systems considered for increasing alfalfa production?
If the tower and pivot systems are part of a research and extension, an integrated research and extension project that is going to compare those systems versus other systems, then yes, it's a project that will be considered in this program. If it's just infrastructural development for alfalfa production, then it's not.
Okay, we've had a couple requests for the project search links to be posted into the chat box. I'm not sure if that's allowable. If we can go ahead and do that, I'll try to figure that out. And
yeah, we can do that. It's allowable.
okay. Next question is, can you please overview the requirements of PDs from specific regions of the country?
Okay, a project director is basically the person in charge of the project. Do we have to have a additional description other than that? We have 3 regions. They are in the RFA. I'm not going to go over those in detail. And whichever region the project director is from, he has to get a collaborating state from within that same region to be considered for a regional coordination project. We require a regional coordination project. National coordination project is not required. It's just encouraged because the lobbyists for this program like to see projects that cover broad geographic areas. So again, it's not required to have national coordination. It's not required to go beyond your region, but you are required to have at least 2 states from one region to be eligible to apply for a grant in this program. Except if you are looking at indigenous ecological knowledge as the main focus of your proposal, then the regional coordination requirement will be waived.
Okay, does it make a difference if industry is participating or not in proposal evaluation?
If the question is about who serves on the review panel, we at NIFA, we try to have balanced review panels, members of a review panel that represent different geographic areas of the country, different types of institutions, land grants institution, public institution, private institutions, and within the land grant system, we try to have representatives from the different land grant types, 1862s, 1890s, and 1994s. We try to have reviewers from tribal colleges. Now, you have to admit that we are not always successful in getting participants from those, from especially the tribal colleges, because they typically do not involve in deep research in, especially in the alfalfa industry. And we try to involve as much as we can experts who work in industry, people who work in chemical companies, people who work in biotech companies. That's those sort of representatives. Now you have to appreciate though that we have to be very careful of who we request to be reviewers from, especially places like the seed industry, because they might have a vested interest in the outcome of some proposals, which represents a conflict of interest. And so we try as best as we can to avoid that. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, in which section do we include the project timeline?
The project timeline becomes part of your project narrative.
Okay, how many support letters from stakeholders are optimum?
There is no answer to that question. We did not request support letters from stakeholders. Your proposal will be accepted if you submit an application without support letters from stakeholders. That said, if you think support letters from stakeholders will help to fortify the application you're submitting, then please go ahead and submit those support letters. These are especially important if in your proposal, if in your experimental design, if in your program plan for extension, you are involving stakeholders, then having support letters from them are considered necessary, at least by reviewers. But in terms of the program, we did not state in the RFA that support letters are required. Just know that support letters can help to sell your case, and it can impress reviewers. But there is no answer in terms of how many are optimum. You have to make that decision.
Okay, can you please confirm that a logic model is not needed?
I will have to look at my RFA, and I think we did not request a logic model. But if you put a logic model in there, the reviewers might like it. I'm double checking to make sure that I did not put it in there. No, I did not say that we needed a logic model. We need a data management plan. Something that I did not speak about, and that was an oversight on my part, is that we are now requiring, as of FY24, we are requiring proposals to have a mentoring plan. And the mentoring plan is strongly recommended if you are requesting funding for students or postdoctoral support, including scholarships or fellowships. And the mentoring plan, you can read the RFA to see the details about page length and how many for each educational level and that sort of thing. But please, a mentoring plan is required or is strongly recommended if your proposal is requesting support for funding of students or postdocs.
Okay, does national coordination get preference over regional coordination?
It does not. It might be looked at more favorably by reviewers, but if a regional coordination project has more scientific merit, the reviewers seen as having impact on the scientific community, if reviewers see it as leading to development in the science of alfalfa production, if reviewers see it as having a great chance of success, it will be ranked above one that has national coordination. So no, there's no preference. It's just that we have to include that in the RFA because the lobbyists for this program, the people who get the money for you from Congress, like to see broad geographical representation. Luckily for you, they are not on the review panel. I shouldn't have said that, strike that out, delete that from the recording.
Does this program have a new investigator award?
We do not. Programs that have new investigator awards are usually typically in the AFRI program portfolio. We are not an AFRI program. We are a standalone program that is based on appropriations from Congress each year.
Okay.
We do not have, we only have standard awards, and our awards or project types are all integrated research and extension. You can include education if you want, but it's not required. But research and extension is required.
Okay, when you mention 2 states from 3 regions, does that mean the PD institutions are in 6 states? Or
I did not say 3 regions.
Or the research is physically conducted in 6 states?
Okay, so let's go over that again. We have, NIFA has divided, or this program has divided the country into 3 regions, and we have listed the states for those 3 regions. If you are looking at a proposal that addresses regional coordination, then we require that 2 states from that region be represented. One, the PD institution, obviously, and a second institution from another state in that region. So let's say the Southeast, for example. If the PD is from Georgia and they have a colleague from Tennessee, then that constitutes regional coordination. If you want to have national coordination, then you'll have a PD from Georgia, a collaborator from Tennessee, a collaborator from Oklahoma, and a collaborator from Kansas, if that makes sense. Okay. The other part of the question, yes, the research has to be physically conducted, or part of the research has to be physically conducted in each of the institutions that are participating in the project. You cannot just put someone's name. The language of the RFA says it must be a substantial part of the project. It doesn't have to be the same research being repeated at 2 locations. It could just be supporting work that supports the main research project. But there has to be work in each of the institutions. It's not just someone in another state providing technical advice. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, is there value in letters of support that are not from co-PIs, but are from industry stakeholders or extension component collaborators that are not co-PIs?
I think I kind of answered that question when I was responding to the person who asked how many letters of support from stakeholders are required. The short answer is yes, there is value in letters of support. Reviewers are impressed by letters of support, but I will repeat again, they are not required in this program. I will also repeat that if you are involved in industry stakeholders, and if you're involved in extension people as not as necessarily only as collaborators, but if you're just going to be using extension people as part of your outreach program, then letters of support will fortify, will support your application. It will make your application a stronger application.
Okay, and the last one that I see in the Q&A is asking about resource links to show schedules for upcoming webinars for FAS. And I'm not sure who SAS is, but I don't think
yeah, SAS is I will put that slide back up if I can find my share button. Where is it? Huh. Share screen. There we go. Can you see my slide?
yes.
Okay, so this is a slide that shows the RFA, that link to the RFA release calendar. And if you go to the earlier link, let me get my handy dandy cursor. If you go to this link, you will see NIFA events listed, and it includes the technical assistance webinar. Also, if you subscribe to NIFA updates, these things are listed for upcoming webinars and other things that are upcoming in NIFA. In fact, just this morning, I saw today's NIFA update, and this webinar was listed on it. It was also listed a couple of weeks ago. So, but yeah, you can get that information off of that website, the nifa.usda.gov events website.
And I believe that's all we have in the Q&A.
Wonderful. We did that with 1 minute to spare. If I don't see any questions coming up in the next 60 seconds, I would like to say thank you all for attending this webinar. I hope you found it useful. And do not forget that if you have follow-up questions, or if you have questions that you did not think about right now and would like to ask them later, please look for my email address somewhere. You'll find it on NIFA's website, and just shoot your question to me. And we would really appreciate if you could send those notification of intent. It doesn't have to be detailed information, just a title, a draft title, who you are, your institution, who you plan to collaborate with at this time anyway. It doesn't have to be a complete list, what their institutions or affiliations are, and just let us know what priority area you plan to link your proposal to, and we'd appreciate that very much. And thank you, and looking forward to your submissions.